So it's my pleasure, first off, to introduce Stéphane Dandeneau, who is professor of psychology at Université Montréal, and who has been involved with the network for some time, and he'll be talking about some of his work on resilience.
Here, the title, I'll spell it out for you because you might not be able to read it, but Comme des tiques, on toffe encore comme les vrais diggins. This is a kind of a phrase that kind of evolved through the different group de jazette or focus groups with the Franco-Métis. And actually, if you can read the abstract, I kind of refer to how diggin came about. And by the end, if I forget to mention what diggin means, please ask me, or I'm sure you'll figure it out. I'm here to talk to you about a project that I was involved in during my postdoc with Lawrence. The big picture was the Roots of Resilience. Within Roots of Resilience, there was this project where Stories of Resilience. Within the Stories of Resilience, we had multiple communities. So I'll give you a quick overview of the Stories of Resilience and the process, and then I'm going to try to get into the specifics of the Métis Resilience project, and finish with a few of the outcomes that came from it, and the knowledge exchange projects that we developed. The aim of the Stories of Resilience project, was to collect stories that and to help redefine perspective of resilience from different Aboriginal perspectives, either from individual perspectives or community perspectives. It was also a way for us to give a place or space to traditional knowledge, traditional stories, things that may not be in the literature. And we wanted to identify resilient processes from First Nations, Inuit, Métis perspectives, or maybe case studies, and from urban and rural communities, because we wanted to sort of try to get not a representative sample, but at least attempt to see what different scenarios and different contexts, what types of resilient processes exist in these different contexts. This is a brief overview of the communities that participated. We mainly, the main data collection happened in Kahnawake with the Métis and with Wamindji, and then we had kind of other satellite projects in Eskasoni, Six Nations, Iqaluit, and Kinget. Briefly, the overview of the project, the process was kind of a prototype of the process was to establish a community advisory board or developmental partnership with the communities. This often started with people we knew, people already involved in the network, meeting new people, and that was obviously key. Through this key person, this key liaison person, we established a community advisory group. We either had, we developed a local ethics process if it either was in place, or we proposed to the community advisory group to look over ethics and to kind of act as an ethics board for us. And then we either hired community researchers or recruited researchers. Basically, we build a local team, which is quite usual, and I don't have to tell you the importance of this to this group. And then we gathered stories. We set out to gather stories with first key informant interviews, or key informants. These are people that are recognized as, knowing the history of the community, knowing a lot of people, knowing sort of the context, and having an overview of the historical and current context of the community. And then we engaged in focus groups. These focus groups were kind of defined and the community advisory group. The community advisory group helped us define who we should talk with. So mainly it was elders, adults, and youth. And then in Kahnawake, for example, they really wanted us to talk to youth, so younger than 18 years old. And so we had these types of focus groups, depending on what the advisory group recommended or asked us to do. And then we had individual interviews. So the focus group, the aim of the focus group was to get not really a community perspective, but many people talking about similar things in the same group. So some people obviously talked about their own experience in a group setting. Some people talked about the group past in the group. So it's not like we wanted to get a community perspective. It's just that many people talking amongst each other is different than talking to one person. So the focus group really was, I think the idea is to get a lot of people and seeing how they either converge onto the same story or a different story, or just people talking sort of like the Truth and Reconciliation, where they want to send out their testimonial out to the group. So it kind of varied, depend. And the individual interview was obviously focused on individuals and the individual life. So one of the communities was my own community. I have to say on the onset, it's very rare that researchers get to research their own. Well, their own. I mean, usually we study other people, right? I mean, we go to Venezuela or we go elsewhere. You know, so like I'm an expert in Peruvian history, right? I think that I had the fortunate opportunity to say, wait a minute. Actually, it took me a while. Also, I'm surprised by how long it took me to say, wait a minute. Why don't I just go talk to my dad and my grandfather? I mean, this could totally fit in this, right? And it wasn't my instinct. I guess what I meant to say is when I started with Lawrence, it wasn't my instinct to say, oh, all I got to do is phone this and we got the project going. It took me like a year and a half to actually stop and say, wait a minute, we can easily do this with my own. Because I think that, because I think that it doesn't come, well, it didn't come naturally for me. It seems like we're always looking outward instead of looking inward. So all that to say that through this project, I also learned a lot about myself. You know, not only about, the people within my community, yes, but all about myself, because it was a great way of introspection, I guess you could say. So the Franco-Métis communities are basically spread out in Southern Manitoba. Now, the reason I say Franco-Métis is because the Métis are not a homogeneous group. I mean, there's different types of Métis. You can get a Scottish Métis, Irish Métis, or French Métis. We're a nation that are kind of very independent from each other, and groups that are very independent, and also communities that are very independent. And even within Manitoba, you can't say that, all of Manitoba Métis are similar. I mean, they're very different. And so even within the community or the definition of Métis, we had to kind of, focus on a subtype or, a type, I guess you could say. So that's why I'm talking about the Franco-Métis, which is, I guess you could say, my community. So here, mainly in Southern Manitoba, we're talking about Riel country, right? This is where, some people say that, the Métis homeland, west of Western Ontario, this is where, the Métis Rebellion started, and Batoche and so on. So obviously, I grew up with Riel everywhere around me. This is the museum, St. Boniface Museum. This is the Basilica, St. Boniface Basilica. And right beside it, there's Louis Riel's tomb. So every Sunday when we went to church, I passed by this tomb. And as a child, it's there, right? I mean, this is where Riel is buried. And okay. People come from all over the world to see this. I mean, obviously there's a reason they would come because of, history. But Riel is absolutely everywhere. This is a fabulous picture. And this is a relatively new bridge called Esplanade Riel. So even contemporary kind of new architecture buildings, or I guess structures, are given old names, I guess, or kind of are given names with Riel. And this is the bridge this is a pedestrian bridge that crosses St. Boniface and Winnipeg, the two arch rivals. So our first challenge in the Métis project was to actually define the Franco-Métis community, or even the Métis community. And so it actually took us a fair bit of time, because even within the research team, I had an older lady working with us, and a slightly younger lady working with us, and a very young lady. So, and when we said, who are the Métis in Manitoba, or who are the, les Métis, or les Métis, or les Métis, people say, oh, it's Métis Canadien Français. And then someone else, no, it's Métis pur. Or someone would say, no, it's Métis francophone. And then a youth said, actually, no, it's Franco-Métis. All that to say that even to this day, different terms are used to refer to this community. And so we had to kind of, we were faced with this reality of we're not bounded to a geographical location. And so it's more of a conceptual location, or conceptual identity, or a self-defining identity. So for the purpose of the project, we said we would like to interview Franco-Métis, Métis francophone, Métis Canadien Français, or Métis Français. So if you self-identify as one of those terms, we considered you within the rubric of Franco-Métis. And then in this context, the Community Advisory Board said that it's absolutely essential that we look at the urban and rural context. Because of the spread of the communities, it's very important to look at, fishing villages on the Lake Winnipeg or on Lake Manitoba and urban Métis in downtown Winnipeg or downtown St. Boniface. And then obviously across generation. In this context, we worked with one of the locals of the MMF, the Manitoba Métis Federation, which is Conseil des Anglais, and we worked with one of the associations that Riel co-founded, the Union Nationale Métis, which are the two, I guess, associations that represent Franco-Métis in Manitoba. We interviewed we interviewed people and asked them what are the challenges and how they got through these challenges. That was the main focus of our interviews, and we wanted to focus on, yes, please identify what happened and sort of the issues that has happened or that are happening, and please tell us how you are getting through them or how you have gotten through them. So we wanted to obviously focus on aspects of processes of resilience. We asked them for signs of wellness, words or expressions for resilience, hence the word tough, tick, diggin. That came out naturally throughout discussions. We asked for examples, so prototypes of people, families, communities, other communities that are showing resilience. We asked for traditional stories, jokes, songs, anything that kind of, for them represented this process of getting through or helping through or signs of wellness. And then we asked about sharing knowledge and future outlooks for the community and for, I guess, mainly for the community. In all, we interviewed 72 participants from 18 to 90, 3 informant interviews, 6 focus groups. The one thing that was fabulous in this group was the intergenerational focus groups. Yes, the elders focus group, the adults focus groups, and youth were very enriching. But the intergenerational focus groups were absolutely astounding because that's when you had grandfather, mother, and then child talking to each other and referring to similar stories, but different aspects of the similar stories. It's kind of like the grandfather or the child saying, but you never told me about that. And then the adult saying, yeah, but I had to hide it from you because she told me to not tell you. So you get this really very interesting intergenerational. Now, I think that, I'm trying to think if we had actually like a grandfather, child of the same family. I think everyone was kind of mixed anyways. We might have had like a grandfather and a parent or an adult of the same family, but mainly it was, representative of the different generations, and then individual interviews. The main focus of our analyses was to look at the shared and distinct aspects across these generations. We wanted to kind of see what kind of waves through these generations, what happened through the community and what happened through these generations to kind of get a view of these resilience waves. And here are the different, here are the 3, I guess the 4 main waves that we've identified. Now, granted, problems, yes, death, health issues and so on are very, prominent. I mean, so we wanted to focus on more of the communal or waves that, more communally driven waves and more, and waves that cut across generations. The first wave was poverty. So it started off like many normal other communities. Our grandparents were extremely poor. Parents were had more resources, and then to now, the adults or the young adults have everything they have or everything they need. So de pauvre comme la gale, which is like you're poorer than the poor, to j'ai tout ce qu'il me faut. So to everything that I have, everything that I need. So this is the first wave across each generation, which is not unusual. I mean, we're not the only ones who have gotten through this. Discrimination. The discrimination wave started as external sources of discrimination, either from the English, either from the French Canadians, to nowadays is actually more internal discrimination. So if I go to Winnipeg and say I'm Métis, no Anglophone is going to disturb me. If I go to Winnipeg and to my own community and I say I'm Métis, someone else might say, well, what do you mean Métis? Prove it to me. And so this is a very distinct wave where we're no longer talking about the out group, and we're talking more about, I guess, lateral discrimination. which is very prominent and a very important source of discord within the nation or within the group. Shame. It started from my grandparents being extremely shamed after the rebellion. We understand that after the Riel Rebellion, the Métis were condemned. They were traitors. Traitors, yeah? No, not, yeah, we're traitors. They were condemned to they were hunted, and so they went in hiding. And so obviously my grandparents were ashamed of being Métis. They told their children, ferme ta gueule, shut your mouth, shut up, don't say anything, don't tell anyone. And to actually, nowadays, you go to primary schools and you say, who's Métis? You know, half of the class will go up and say, I'm Métis, I'm Métis, I'm Métis, I'm Métis. And it's cool to be Métis. So that's the identity wave that has happened. And then the other fourth wave is this, what we call this unresolved identity grief. So through this generation, through less the poverty, mainly the discrimination and the shame, you've got this identity grief that has been maintained and almost transmitted from generation to generation. So shame became hiding, hiding became coolness, but within coolness, you'll see that there's a lack of clarity. I'll get to the clarity issue in a while. So the resilience, obviously, these are the different waves that this is kind of like the context that set up as to what happened or what's going on through these generations. Now, how have we gotten through these waves? Obviously, you have sort of general processes, things that happen almost everywhere: education, ways of being, positive attitude, gatherings, models, so on. So these are things that can be found in other communities, not necessarily only Métis communities. Two of the things that we believe are specific or unique to the Métis context are, first, the independence and the débrouillardise that we had to. So because we fell through the cracks, we did not fit under the Indian Act. We were forgotten. We were chased. We had to go in hiding. That forced us to be independent, self-reliant. We had to be débrouillard. We had to fend for ourselves. That was actually a good thing for us because we didn't have any dependent. We couldn't be dependent on something else. We had no support from any institution. So yes, we were poor, but we had everything we needed. Yes, we were poor, but we had family, and we built our social network. And on the title of our of our report, there's a saying from one of our elders. He said, "Un métis, il est jamais pris." That means you'll never find a Métis that is stuck. Meaning that, you know, we always find a way somewhere, somehow, because we were forced to be so independent and kind of, you know, left to our own device. Which in our mind actually is, you know, yes, it was hard, but it was actually okay. Second of all is what we call this being social chameleons. En français, we say des caméléons sociaux. So because of this hiding, because of this shame, our parents especially, and this we found it especially present in our parents' generation, became these social chameleons. Some Métis could pass for Anglophones, could pass for white, could pass for Indians. So they could blend into society. Because of our mixed heritage, some had blonde, blue eyes, and some had dark skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. We could blend into whatever social network was present, get educated, get the job, and then come back home and maintain this hiding. And this was key to, now you have Métis in almost any spheres of government, businesses everywhere. Now the pitfall, I'm going to this is just another way of showing you what I've just told you. But I want to get, because I'm seeing that I'm getting close on time. So this social chameleon, in our view, is one of the key factors that have contributed to our generation's kind of resilience. My parents' generation, this being social chameleons for my parents has helped me be a proud Métis, has helped me value education, value working hard, ethics, so on. However, the biggest pitfall, or there are pitfalls to this being social chameleons. Excuse me. There's a relatively unclear collective social identity in our young generation. Now, if you ask these same people in primary school, who is Métis, these people will stand up. And then if you ask them, what is it to be Métis? that's when I go, well, I'm a little less sure exactly. I was told that I was, but what does it mean to be Métis? How are you different than your Franco-Canadien beside you or the French-Canadian family beside you? Or how are you different from, you know, the Winnipegger in the same class? That's when it gets a little bit more complicated because of this social chameleonage, because of this hiding, because of this deliberate forgetting almost in a sense. And so the other challenge is that the answers to these questions, who is Métis and what is Métis, mainly resides in our grandfathers, our grandmothers, and our great-grandparents. Now, these people are still hiding it and are still not willing to tell us about it. And so you got this degradation of, or this erosion of knowledge to these generations. And so soon we'll be losing this information, we're losing, you know, the potential of answering these questions, which is the youth are very, they're very attuned to it, and they know about this, and they go to their grandparents and they ask them, but their grandfathers and grandmothers aren't necessarily ready to share because of because of what it means to be tagged as Métis, and therefore the current challenge for current Franco-Métis that are very proud and want to continue to work is trying to rebuild this collective memory and to reconstitute this collective memory within the whole reality of being in the 21st century, which is a global world. So they got some work. Part of the output was obviously a community report. This is the quote that I was mentioning. Un chiffre, c'est jamais pris. Meaning, you know, we're very self-reliant, very débrouillard, very independent. We produced, part of the research team, we had a retired a school teacher. And so she helped us develop 2 pedagogical kits or teaching kits, one adapted to 4th grade and the other one adapted for 9th grade. So this literally fits into the Manitoba curriculum. If you have to teach about Manitoba history in grade 9, you could take this kit and teach about Manitoba history while integrating aspects of the project. If you want more detail, these will be online. We'll figure out a way of putting them online, but these are publicly available for sure. We had a Fête des Capables, a community forum where we invited all the participants, key knowledge holders or key knowledge people that might be interested in learning about the project at the Fort Gibraltar in Winnipeg. And then we produced a video vignette. Basically, it's an executive summary in a video format. Again, one of our participants or one of our community members is a videographer. And so we approached her, we asked her, can you help us do, kind of put this video together? I did the narration, she did the video, and so on. So this is a way for us to, you know, speak to our grandfathers, grandmothers, uncles, and we get to share this information very easily accessible. This is on Vimeo, so if you go on vimeo.com/NAMHR, there's also the Ganawagi project videos and so on. So I think I will leave it at that for now.